Hey everyone, I am Gini Dietrich. Welcome to our second Fireside Chat. I'm super excited to introduce you to this month's guest. I have spent the last 4 years trying to get him to smile. Not going to do it.
Close.
So actually, that's my goal today, is to see if we can get him to smile. Would you like to try?
I'm just hiding behind this microphone, so
Dang
it
it!
works perfectly.
It does kind of work perfectly. Christopher S. Penn is the Vice President of Marketing Technology at Shift Communications, which is a data-driven PR and marketing agency. I think that you can call yourselves data-driven because of you. You also are, or he is, I guess I'm supposed to still call you in the third person, co-founder of the PodCamp Conference with Chris Progan and a co-host of Marketing Over Coffee, marketing podcast with John Wall. He is a professor of internet marketing and leads subject matter expert, curriculum designer, and professor of advanced social media at the University of San Francisco. But because he lives in Boston, he has to do that online. And perhaps most interestingly, he's been a practitioner of the martial arts for more than 20 years and holds a black belt, which officially makes him a ninja. One of my favorite things about Chris is how he shakes your hand, and I would love for you to explain your philosophy on handshakes.
Well, it's not a philosophy. It's just a way of doing it. You shake hands with somebody by turning your hand at kind of an odd angle.
It's kind of
Yeah, it's kind of extend your hand out this way, which lets a person feel like they are in a superior role because their hand's on top, but it actually exposes a couple of joints in the wrist and the elbow in case you need to put the person, into a little control, keep them getting all squirrely on you or doing something that they shouldn't be doing, touching things they shouldn't be touching.
Which, for a handshake. But so I had actually never experienced this. And when I saw you when was that, November at Inbound? You explained that to me. So You said you had me show you, and then you put me into an arm lock, and I was like, okay, so thank you. I'm just going to keep giving you hugs instead. I got it to smile. Yes. All right, we can be done. We're done. And that's it. That's a wrap. All right, now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the real reason you're here today. You and I have had this conversation a couple of times about artificial intelligence, and I'm super excited about it. Someone on my team said that they saw you speak at Marketing Profs about artificial intelligence, and she said that everybody in the room was just like, what just happened to my brain? So I want you to do that, I want these people watching you to have that same experience, that their heads explode. So number one, when people think about artificial intelligence, they think of the Terminator or Minority Report, or what are some other things? Minority Report seems to be the big one right now. Mm-hmm. So let's start off by having you define what artificial intelligence and machine learning is in the context of current business.
So the easiest way to explain that, artificial intelligence is a blanket term. It basically means getting computers to process and mimic human intelligence. And we've been, as a field, it's been in existence really since the 1950s.
Right.
Machine learning. Well, so let's take another step. So out of all this, the foundation of all of this is the algorithm, which is a set of processes with a repeatable outcome. You use algorithms all the time, right? So You wake up in the morning, there's an order you do things. When you make coffee, there's an order in which you do things. There's a repeatable process with the desired outcome. An algorithm is what all of our computers are based on. When we start teaching machines these algorithms, for a while they were kind of dumb, right? You have to be the coder to write the code to make the machine understand the algorithm.
Right.
Machine learning is an evolution of that, in which the machines are starting to help build their own algorithms. And there's two ways they do this, two categories. There's supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So supervised learning is like when you have a toddler, right? And you show them, like, this is a pen, and then you hold up something else, and there's a card. This is a pen, and you keep doing this over and over again until your kid goes pen, right? That's supervised learning. We're doing the same thing with computers. Every time that you're doing image recognition or speech recognition or natural language processing, where you're training a model, that is essentially supervised learning. Hey, look at this billions of photos all containing the Toyota logo. That's the Toyota logo. Computer, I want you to recognize it in photos from now on. The second is unsupervised learning, where you give the computer a bunch of stuff and say, figure it out. Figure out what this is. So think about a box of Legos, right? What are all the ways you could classify those Legos, right? So there, some that are 4 nubs long, some that are 8, some that are round and circle and stuff like that. And you don't tell the computer what to look for. You say, figure out all the different ways to look at this thing. And so unsupervised learning teaches computers to almost sort stuff out. So it understands, like, yeah, sometimes you're going to want red Legos. Sometimes you're going to want long Legos. But whatever it is, it has all that information. So anytime you're doing interpretations, anytime you're loading data sets without a training model in mind, that's unsupervised learning. And it's useful for, again, large-scale classification, because machine learning really is math in a lot of ways.
Right.
The next layer, which is where we are now, is called deep learning, where you start to chain these things together, where every machine learning algorithm plugs into another one, kind of like digital Legos, and you end up with these things that are dozens or hundreds of layers deep, and where the machine is really starting to understand and emulate, or in cases surpass the human. So a really good example, 2 of them actually. Google recently announced that its facial recognition and motion tracking software can read lips better than a human can now.
That's crazy.
Right. So think about the implications of that on a surveillance state, right?
Right.
You have a conversation in public, doesn't matter if it's in range, if the lens can see it.
Yep.
The second is Google Translate. Up to about 2 months ago, Google Translate was okay. They put it into a deep learning system, and what it did was it reverse engineered all human languages and created its own proto-language underneath. For those of folks watching or listening who are biblical scholars, you remember that in the Old Testament, the Tower of Babel was mankind's attempt to build a building to the heavens, and the powers that be shattered it and confused people's minds so they could no longer speak the same language and thus never collaborate like that on a scale again. Google's reverse engineering that. Google.
So wait, here's what's interesting about Google Translate. I've been reading about this too, and help everybody understand this. So from what I understand, based on the way I've been reading it, is it used to be that they would take the Italian dictionary and the English dictionary and they would throw all that in. So it was kind of unsupervised because they weren't saying like, gelato means ice cream. They weren't saying, but they were giving all that information. And then what they discovered was that's not how humans learn. And so they had to teach the machines how to learn like a human does, exactly like you said, like teaching your toddler, this is how you speak and this is how you, and that from what I understand, that's been the big shift in how they've gotten where it is.
Through deep learning, that's right. Now,
fascinating.
Here's the part that will probably be a little unsettling. Think about how a human develops. In the beginning, we have sensory inputs. We have basic understanding of stuff, right? Like, don't touch the hot stove. Then you evolve language. The neurons in your brain evolve to process language. And then you get onto higher cognitive functions in your, after the age of 3, 4, 5, all the way through the age of like 18, really. Machines, classification, algorithms. That's like algorithms at the beginning. That's like the baby, right? Supervised and unsupervised learning are like the toddler. Deep learning is like the advanced toddler. We are not too far away from a general purpose AI, which means a machine that is self-aware and sentient, and it can learn and do things better and faster than us.
So are they going to take over our jobs?
Most of them. Because I want you to think about a 2x2 matrix for a moment. On one scale is the type of work, right? So you have physical versus non-physical work, like shoveling ditches, filing things, or writing. And on the other scale is cognition, so non-cognitive work to cognitive work. So, for example, in non-cognitive physical work, literally like shoveling things, chopping carrots, whatever, mindless, easy to do. We've automated that. On the physical cognitive side of things, for a while there were things like picking lettuce, which is actually really hard to do because you need to lift the plant up, cut it at the bottom, and then put it in a little clamshell. We've automated that now. You have non-physical non-cognitive work. So again, like filing papers or writing blog posts and press releases. Like that's what the industry does. Hey, write a press release. That's not
Right.
work, right?
Right.
We've automated that now. Companies like Automated Insights take your spreadsheet data, boom, 1,000 posts, $250 a month. So all that's left for us is the non-physical cognitive work in that fourth quadrant. I was at World of Watson in October of last year. Walk up and say, there was this booth, Watson, the piano that I'm incompetent at piano. I'm incompetent at all musical instruments. Like they said, go play a few notes. All right, so I got a face roll on the keyboard.
The things I miss.
And then Watson said, what style of music do you want to create? And I said, okay, Middle Eastern. And it took from that jumble of notes, it inferred a 4.5-minute song, the coda, the bridge, everything.
From the notes that you just...
From the notes I played, to infer that it created a piece of music. So now, cognitive, non-physical work is the area where AI is going to start taking over. Are robots going to take our jobs? Yeah, eventually they will. Because the only jobs that they will not take over are jobs where there is absolutely no prior precedence. There's no material for to train on. Nothing exists, right? So pure invention, like daydreaming. Or jobs where it simply is not worth it to develop the system to do it, right? So that it's cheaper to pay a human than it is to build the robot to do it. There aren't many jobs like that because most jobs that are, particularly the physical jobs, it's cheaper to build a robot. They work without complaining overtime. There's no health benefits, etc. So we have to have, as a society and as a species, a conversation in the next 10 years about things like universal basic income and such, not because we're liberals wanting handouts or conservatives wanting this, or no, because most jobs will not need humans.
Well, it's interesting because right now we're going through the process of looking for schools for our junior kindergartner, which I think is ridiculous. Why can't we just go to kindergarten like everybody else, like we did as kids, right? But junior kindergarten. But they say like that everybody across the board has said, we are teaching these kids to be good citizens because the jobs that they have when they graduate from college do not exist right now. Not one single job.
Think about this. DeepMind recently, which is Google's deep learning AI, is now tasked with writing some of its own code. So you don't need a programmer to do that. So teaching kids to code is pointless, right? Because programming is very repetitive,
right?
Non-physical labor,
right?
But also think about this: if DeepMind can write itself, it will write itself into self-awareness.
That's crazy. Okay, so I want to go back to the Watson event because I saw you right after you got back from that, and you were talking to me about how the machine can figure out what kind of strain of cancer you have in about 30 seconds. So I find that fascinating. So talk through that.
So the example they gave was that they had a woman in Tokyo who had leukemia and was not responding to treatment. They were trying everything, and she just kept getting worse and worse. So what Watson does, supervised learning and unsupervised. It took all 220,000 oncology journals, read them all, and took her genome, sequenced her genome to figure out what's in there, and identified that they had misdiagnosed her. They concluded it was the wrong cancer they were treating. They changed the treatment. She made a full recovery. So it's a combination of supervised learning and unsupervised learning welded together into deep learning.
Fascinating. Okay, so I mean, to your point, if we no longer need an oncologist to diagnose a cancer, then certainly a communicator's job. So what do you see that we do in the next 5 to 10 years?
For people who are in public relations, marketing, communications, and such, in the next 5 years or so, you need to get really good at working with all of these technologies, helping to learn, to train them, helping to maintain them, helping to develop, bringing new ideas to them, rebuilding them, quality checking the algorithms. Because in the first few years, there will be a question of like, is this machine doing the right thing?
Right things. Yeah.
There was a really good example. There's a police department, I believe it was in Georgia, either Georgia or Florida, that was attempting to create a predictive algorithm about which criminals would re-offend, who would commit another crime. The actual results was less than 20% correct. It was terrible. It was just a useless piece of software. But one artifact in there was that it identified African Americans as 5 times as likely to be offended, when in fact, in reality, it was completely wrong because it was biased. Someone had built a bias into the algorithm against African Americans. And so our job as people who are supervising the machines is to provide that oversight to say, yeah, that's wrong. What the machine just created is not the correct output.
All right, so let me ask you this. One of the things, after you and I had that conversation last fall, I was kind of like, wow, I mean, and I agree just based on what I'm reading and everything too. So I said to my team this year, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'd love your insight on it. I said to my team, I'm putting a moratorium on hiring people. We can hire virtual assistants from the Philippines. We can hire help, but I want you to create workflows that teach a machine how to do your job. And so that's what they are. Every single person on my team has to create one video a week that workflows what they do that can be that is repetitive. And they're kind of looking at me like I'm crazy, I think. But that's sort of the first step that we're taking. It might not be the right first step, but that's the first step that we're taking.
Understanding algorithms is useful for anyone because even your job as a whole is not just going to vanish overnight, right?
Right.
Most of it will fade away as you figure, oh yeah, I don't have to spend 5 hours a week doing that anymore. Now I just push the button and the machine does. Hey, I got 5 hours free in my schedule. Awesome. You're going to be filled up with meetings.
Me for riding my bike, but you know.
So over time, there'll just be less and less. And what will happen is over time, you will see, like, oh, do we really need to make another hire? No, we're okay. Do we need 3 more account coordinators? No, we can get away with 1.
Right.
And so on and so forth. So we'll not be like, oh my God, we're all out on the streets. No, it will be over time. As we make our things more efficient, we will simply need fewer people to do the work.
Yeah, so cool.
Okay, unless you're starting your career, in which case you're like, I hate you all.
Right. I think it is cool though. I mean, somebody asked me the other day what I think has upended the PR industry in the last 5 years. And of course it's been social, right? But I even think that this is going to upend it even more in the next 5 years in terms of exactly that. We're not going to have to hire more people. Mm-hmm. And that is scary. That is scary, especially if you're just starting out. So give an example, if you have one, of a company that's using AI or machine learning from a public relations perspective really well.
We do it for our clients. So one of the things that we do is, for example, coverage, right? We all want to get coverage, but it's a pain to read through a lot of coverage, right? So we have, in your media monitoring, you'll have like, oh, what was the sentiment, positive or negative? Yeah, okay, that's not really helpful, right, guys?
Right.
So we've been using Watson to take the coverage that our clients get, feed it to Watson, and say, tell me what's in here. Not just sentiment, but the valence of sentiment. How strong is that sentiment? What emotions are inside? Is it written analytically, confidently, tentatively? Is there anger, fear, joy? What's the tone and tenor? And then personality-wise, tell me about the author of this piece. What kind of human being wrote this piece? Are they extroverted? Are they conscientious? So you have all these personality traits. And what we're developing essentially is a fingerprint, not only of the journalists, but also we're able to present to clients like, yeah, this is the kind of coverage you're getting. So people are reacting to your news this way when they write about you. This is how they feel about you. If that's not aligned to your brand, then you have a messaging problem. Right? You have a problem getting your point across and getting people to feel about you the way you want them to feel about you. Like, pretty much, I can't think of many brands that would want disgust as
right.
trigger.
Right. No, not at all. Except maybe one brand.
And so we're using this and it's providing more usable insights, not just like, hey, here's the coverage report for this week, but here's what you should do about it, right? Mm-hmm. Think about this. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of thing you want. Or if you're about to approach a journalist, you scan their last 100 or 200 articles. Now, yeah, you can get an intern or a coordinator to spend 5 days reading that thing, but isn't it easier to feed it to Watson and then in 15 minutes have your data
easier?
back?
Yeah,
right?
Way easier.
Say, this is who this person is.
And you don't have the human error in that either.
You don't have the human error, but you do still need oversight right now because, again, we're training these machines. So we're using it very aggressively in a lot of basically processing the data we have. We're about to embark on some image recognition stuff for the first time commercially. We've been testing it for about over a year now because one of the big things is that with social media, images are becoming the dominant currency, right? Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, all these media. Do you have time to look at 1 billion images? I don't.
No.
Do you have time to look at every image that your clients and competitors post? I don't, but a machine can.
So are you I saw something on Facebook the other day or maybe earlier this week that said that there was something that you've been working on since October and you finally had a breakthrough, which is awesome. But at the same time, do we need to have does every organization need to have someone like you on staff to manage all of this? Or how do we, how does a small business or a startup or a medium-sized business put this into place where they don't have big budgets?
So there's 3 roles you generally need. They may be all in one person. They may be in a bunch of different people. There's developers who connect the artificial intelligence services to your company. There are data scientists who can feed the data to the machine and then interpret what comes back. And then there's marketing technologists, people who take the data and the analysis and the insights and turn it into programs. It says, this is the channel to be on. Okay, let's run some ads on that channel, and connecting the dots. You need all 3 types of people, whether it's one person or many. For the small business, you would start at the end with a marketing technologist because that's the low-hanging fruit. Okay. Right? Let's make some revenue right away.
Right.
For the big business, start at the developer end because you're going to want to do connections to the machines right the first time and not have to revisit it in 6 months or a year's time. But you need all 3 types of people, whether it is a hire, whether it is a contractor, whether it's an agency. You need those capabilities today.
Does everybody have access to Watson, or how does that work?
Yeah, just sign up as a developer with IBM Bluemix, and you sign up. You log into the free tier. You get a certain number of queries per month, and then after that, you buy them, and they're relatively inexpensive, like 5 or 6 cents each.
Wow, that's relatively inexpensive. Unless you're getting billions, but in which case.
Well, and so this is the one thing that people who are doing any kind of development, not just AI, need to be cautious of is, the per transaction cost is low, but then you have a tendency like, oh, let's do this. And like,
right.
Oh, I forgot to put $100.
Oh, wait a sec. I've just spent $3 million. Oops.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's go through our lightning round. Just quick answers. You don't have to expound on anything unless you really want to talk about why you like Twizzlers over Red Vines, which Jay Bear did. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What did you major in?
Politics.
Twitter or Facebook?
Depends.
Oh, you can't say depends.
They have different functions.
Which do you use the most right now?
Personally or professionally?
Personally.
Personally, Facebook.
Okay. What book changed your life?
A Timeless Way of Thinking by Christopher Alexander, an architecture and design book.
Professional pet peeve.
People who talk too much during sales pitches and don't know when to shut up and let the prospect do the talking.
Just had that conversation earlier. Oxford comma, yes or no?
Always. Because
yes,
you don't want strippers named JFK and Stalin showing up at your party.
Yes. Other than SpinSucks, your favorite blog?
I
feel like you could say your own. It's my favorite.
It's not my favorite because it's mine. I know it's going to be on it. For analytics and measurement, Avinash Kaushik's blog. Yeah. For machine learning and AI, KD Nuggets.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
It's brand new and it's extremely technical. So when you read it, you're oh, here's the thing on logistic regression. And you're like, I don't know what logistic regression is. I gotta Google before I read today's blog post.
You're like learning a new language over here. Game of Thrones or Westworld?
Westworld.
Oh. What's your guilty pleasure?
I have so many. Actually, I don't think they're not guilty. They're just pleasures. World of Warcraft. I play a ton of World of Warcraft when I have time because it's a set of algorithms in a virtual world, and you got to figure out how do you interact with the algorithms to maximize your successes.
I love you. Salty or sweet?
It depends.
You're not very good at this game.
These are all low context questions.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
The ability to control other people's minds.
Ooh,
I want to
that's a
rewrite.
good
I want to
one.
know what someone else is thinking, but then rewrite it. I want to be able to rewrite their code.
That's kind of scary, Chris. What did you want to be when you grew up?
What I want to be when I grow up, it depends on what time period you asked me. I wanted to be a doctor for quite some time.
Did you?
And then I was in pre-med and did not do well in organic chemistry too.
I feel like that's uncharacteristic.
Because it was not of interest.
Huh. Fascinating. So what is next for you?
I have a meeting at 2:00.
What's next in the big scheme of things?
Like the rest of the human race, likely unemployment to our robots.
Or nuclear war.
In terms of near-term futures, it is becoming much more proficient at integrating the different types of artificial intelligence. Like if you log into Watson or Google Cloud or Amazon AWS or Microsoft Cognitive, there are so many different tools. There's like 20, 25 different types of tools: speech recognition, image recognition, video, facial recognition. Microsoft's facial recognition stuff, by the way, is amazing. You give it a 5 minutes of video and it will give you a timeline of the expressions on that person's faces and what emotions it ties to. You want to have some fun? Take 5 minutes of the video of the politician of your choice speaking and see how many micro emotions they go through that they don't necessarily know that they're transmitting, like their faces of like a half second of disgust or contempt. You can have a lot of fun with that.
I feel like we could have a lot of fun with somebody right now. Thank you. Well, I have one more question. The book that you were writing over the holidays, is it out?
Oh, it is not out. It is on artificial intelligence, and so I am about halfway through the second draft. I guess I have about 5 drafts to go. And the reason why is that as I go through each phase of writing, I have to build the technology that I'm writing about because I need to be able to speak about it credibly in case someone asks a question like, how does this work? Well, first you install this, then install this. And I'm also reading through a number of academic papers as people publish about this sort of thing because I want to write a book that you can't poke holes in.
Yeah. Well, I would venture to guess that most people probably could not poke holes in it, but I like your philosophy. When can we expect that? Yet this year?
This year for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll make sure to share it when it comes out. Thank you very, very much. As always, everybody's heads are going to explode. I love having you around.
Thank you very much.